Of course, we know every time that this White House identifies me or takes a shot at me, we see an increase in rhetoric online, violent rhetoric. And so there's always a connection. And certainly it's something that we've been watching, but this took it to a whole new level.
That was Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer last night on the connection between Donald Trump's attacks on her handling of her state's coronavirus situation and the now foiled alleged kidnapping plot against her. And new this afternoon, Whitmer doubling down, writing in a brand new Washington Post op-ed, quote, "I'm not going to waste my time arguing with the president, but I will always hold him accountable. Because when our leaders speak, their words carry weight. When our leaders encourage domestic terrorists, they legitimize their actions. When they stoke and contribute to hate speech, they are complicit. And when a sitting president stands on a national stage refusing to condemn white supremacists and hate groups, as President Trump did when he told the Proud Boys to stand back and stand by during the first presidential debate, he is complicit." 6 men face federal charges in conspiracy to kidnap Whitmer. Several of their online profiles show histories of anti-government organizing and interest in countering what they considered an uprising against Trump. 7 other men face terrorism and other felony charges in Michigan, 6 of whom have now been arraigned. A senior official now says federal agents found that they were tied to a group that follows the Boogaloo Boys, Boogaloo movement, dedicated to eradicating the government and killing law enforcement officers. Trump's response to the plot and Whitmer's comments about it, well, he attacked the governor again and says she owes him a thank you. We're back with Donna, Heidi, Sam, and Ben. Ben, I wish we hadn't called all the other stuff unprecedented, because this is so truly unprecedented. To have a president who doesn't even come up with new ways to signal to the very forces that his own FBI is trying to foil and contain.
Yeah, well, Nicole, it's not hard to connect these dots. I worked on countering violent extremism in the Obama White House, and the radicalization process for individuals to terrorism is the same whether it's an ISIS terrorist or a domestic terrorist. It's somebody who usually consumes a lot of information online, who believes that their way of life is fundamentally threatened, and so they have to somehow take up arms against that. And we've seen Trump demagogue refugees, and we saw a shooting at the Tree of Life synagogue that was about the fact that that synagogue was participating in helping refugees. We've seen him demagogue Black Lives Matter protesters, and we saw that individual go to Kenosha, Wisconsin, and undertake a shooting. We've seen him attack the media as enemies of the state, and there have been plots uncovered of attempted attacks or threats to members of the media. And now we see in Michigan a governor who put in place lockdowns that Trump said were a threat to people's liberty, and he literally tweeted, "Liberate Michigan," when 2 of these suspects were walking through the Michigan State House carrying semi-automatic weapons. This is not a hard picture to connect. The words and conspiracy theories that he is spreading are clearly planting very dark seeds in the psyche of part of the American populace and making worse what is a growing terrorist threat. And that really is an unprecedented situation. It's hard to find ways to think about it, but I think we have to deal with it as a country, because it's not going away even if he loses. There are people out there who've been radicalized through a mix of what Trump's saying, from what they're consuming online, even the Obamagate stuff we were just talking about. If you are told again and again that there was an attempted coup, and this is the language that Trump uses, against the American government, and if you truly believe that, that too can be a pathway to radicalization. So this is a time, like we keep talking about, where you would hope that our national leaders, including Republicans, would recognize the danger of this trend and stand with people like Governor Whitmer, who are trying to hold Trump accountable and defend this nation and defend our communities.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.